Hello, everyone. It is a great day to be great and a great day to talk about language access services. My name is Cameron Dunlap, and I am with the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Today, we will be talking about language access services, our plan, ensuring fair and timely access to services for all. Our email address is dcyf.languageaccess@dcyf.wa.gov. So let's dive right in. Today, we will introduce who we are, review language access services, and explain the language access plan. So quickly, we'd like to just review the 6 different divisions that make up our agency of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, or DCYF for short. The 6 divisions are Juvenile Rehabilitation, the Office of Tribal Relations, Early Learning, Partnerships Prevention and Services, Child Welfare, and Licensing. It's important to know that nuances exist between all 6 divisions in respect to the services they provide and their language access needs. Language access services, what is it and why should we care? What are language access services? Well, we describe them as the services that agencies use to bridge the communication barrier with individuals who cannot read, understand, speak, or write fluently in the host country language. They are also come from the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Title VI, that provide language access services as a civil right. And why should we care about language access? Well, at its core, language access services is about our need to be understood and to be seen. And I don't mean, can you see me? Is my camera working today? No, I mean, do you see me? Do you really understand me? And do I see you and understand you and know who you are? And yes, there are federal regulations that make language access a requirement, but the need to be understood is something important not only for us as human beings, but also for language access services. Did you know that over 500,000 children and adults in Washington state alone speak a primary language other than English? And the map we see here, produced by the Office of Financial Management, shows the percent in households where English is spoken less than very well. So you can see here, based upon the county you live in, where there may be a need for language access services. And it's important to remember that so many people in our state benefit from these services. And it's not just about those who do not speak English less than very well, but about understanding a person's preferred language and empowering that individual to use and access resources in their preferred language. What is a language access plan? Well, we describe the language access plan as a living document, and the way that we provide these important language access services to the communities interacting with our agency. It's a commitment to meaningful, timely, equitable access to all DCYF programs and services. And again, a language access plan is required by federal law. But what's most important is, again, empowering the individual and letting others use their preferred language to access these services. Because when we talk about the services that DCYF provides, it's for all of the youth and children and families in Washington State, not just those who speak English. Next, we would like to talk about the Language Access Plan in more detail. Expand our language access program. This means increasing our language access services team to support our diverse communities that interact with DCYF. Our team will consist of coordinators, educators, and specific staff focused on digital access and data analysis. But the most important thing to understand is that we are here for you and to help provide language access services. Connect with the community. It is important that we develop rapport with subject matter experts, such as government entities, immigrant advocacy groups, community-based organizations, and other members of the public to best understand how to provide meaningful language access services. This means we must make updates to the language access plan through input of personal lived experiences provided by these members of the community to make our language access plan as pragmatic and helpful as possible. Data collection and analysis. It is crucial that we use our data in a way that helps support the needs of the communities that require language access services when interacting with our agency. This means that we will hire dedicated staff for data analysis and reporting, and identify existing and needed data, as well as identify highest demand languages by division, which can guide priorities in translation, using this data to best be informed about the language access needs of our community and consultating with our divisions in the agency to best provide these services. We must also develop means of collecting client feedback about language access immediately following DCYF interaction to get the best possible feedback regarding the services that they received. Spread the word, services are free. This means that we need to develop and distribute a notice that services are available and free to all, how to request these language access services, and making sure that this notice is translated into 15 languages. What's most important here is people understand that the services for language access are at no cost to them, and they're solely meant for them to be able to access our agency and receive the same services and resources as anyone else. We must also include multilingual footer on the internet site so that our public-facing webpage is easily translated into other languages besides English, and ensure entry points and front desks have preferred language cards and posters so that the community and public is aware they can request services in their preferred language. And again, these services are free to them. Identify leadership and staff roles. We must identify dual and multilingual DCYF staff and how they can support language access, because it is so important for members of the public and community that don't understand English or maybe prefer another language to see that their language, and to a greater extent their culture, is represented within our agency at DCYF. Also, exploring alternative methods of language access support to utilize new and creative ways for providing our language access services. Improve staff engagement. We have already created an internal DCYF community of practice around language access to continuously gather feedback from all different members within our agency. Also, continually and meaningfully engage with frontline staff to understand needs and drive improvements. An emphasis of our team is understanding the challenges our communities have with interacting and accessing DCYF if they don't prefer English, and supporting our frontline staff to better serve these communities, because ultimately the frontline staff are the ones having the most interaction and communication with these families. DCYF training on language access. Work with staff on identifying gaps in training and procedures related to language access is another important part of our language access plan. Our staff need to be trained on how to provide language access services and making sure that these services are easy to provide. This also means we must provide resources and training to ensure success, focusing on cultural change and multiple educational formats, because pushing the ask to understand preferred language is a cultural change within our agency. And it's important to understand that there are multiple ways of knowing and understanding and using these different formats to train others on how to provide language access services. Enable easy language access. Centralizing information on translation and interpreter services, both spoken and sign language, while simplifying the process to receive them, is another important goal of our language access plan. It is also important that we are exploring opportunities for DCYF staff that are bilingual or multilingual, again, empowering these individuals and providing representation among the different communities that they can communicate with. Also, work with DCYF staff to create procedures for language access needs, again, so that we can best be informed of the nuances that exist between the different divisions at DCYF and how to provide the best fitting needs for each of them. Improving your experience. This means provide inclusive phone services so that when members of the community call DCYF, they have the option to hear and interact in languages other than English. Improve technology resources so that especially the public-facing website and other ways that the public and community interacts with DCYF is accessible for their preferred language. And identify and translate vital documents, with each division having their own required documents to do the services they provide, and making sure that these documents are translated into languages that the division is frequently receiving requests for or interacting with in the community. Enhance the complaint process, which means first to take ownership of all complaints and concerns related to language access at DCYF, and to develop an agency-wide complaint and investigative process specifically for language access, which includes adding a web page with complaint form and process so that we can best understand the ways where language access services may not have been provided, and to take these complaints and have a process for investigating and resolving them. Continual plan improvement. First, create a method for making changes and updates to the language access plan. As we referenced earlier, the language access plan is a living document, and it will go through constant changes based upon the feedback that we receive, making sure that the language access plan is updated to best fit the needs of the communities we interact with. One way we can do this is to develop staff and client surveys to receive feedback, and to identify best practices for services and where lack of services exists so that we can address these gaps with our most meaningful language access services. Monitor changing needs, complaints, and feedback data using this different data to, again, update our language access plan and make it the best version of itself possible. We also need to ensure service contracts include quality assurance and cultural competency, so that when translation or interpreter services are being requested, we can ensure they're as close to 100% perfect as possible, while keeping in mind the cultural nuances that exist when these services are provided. So, how can you help? Well, first, please take the survey that we have. Again, collecting feedback is how we are able to update our language access plan and provide the best services possible. So please take the survey and share the survey with your community. We want all communities represented. You'll see there is the QR code for the survey, as well as the URL link. Our survey is currently translated into 9 languages. They are English, Spanish, Somali, Vietnamese, Chinese Simplified, Russian, Khmer, Samoan, and Korean. How to contact us? Again, you can email us at our email address, dcyf.languageaccess@dcyf.org. Any questions or concerns or feedback about language access services, we would be happy to receive them at our email address here. Thank you all so much for joining us today to learn more about language access services and our language access plan at the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families. We hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.